My name is Jasmine Hayes, and I am 34 years old, and just 3 days ago I lowered my husband Caleb into the red Georgia clay, while the preacher's voice cracked against the wind like a flag snapping in a storm. He was a Green Beret. He was my sunrise and my midnight and every breath in between. The morning after the burial, I pulled my aching body up the gravel drive of the only home we ever owned, and found my in-laws already inside the house that still smelled of his cologne and gun oil, and the faint cedar of the Hope chest we refinished together the summer before his last deployment. My father-in-law Malcolm stood in the doorway with a shiny new key in his fist, and his eyes hard as winter iron. "Blood only, Jasmine," he said, "your season here is finished." I watched them drag my clothes, my books, my wedding veil into the frostbitten yard and stack them like garbage while the sky spat sleet on everything I loved. They waited for me to shatter. They waited for the tears, the begging, the collapse. But they never knew the woman Caleb chose. I looked Malcolm dead in the face and whispered, "You missed something." Before I tell you how I reclaimed every shard they tried to grind under their boots, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and smash that like button if you've ever had to claw back what was yours. They thought I was just the soldier's widow. They forgot I was forged in the same fire. The sleet stung my cheeks like tiny needles, and the cold sank straight through my black coat into the hollow place where Caleb's heartbeat used to live. I had stood at that graveside in dress blues borrowed from his best friend because my own mourning clothes felt too small for the size of my loss. The folded flag still sat on the passenger seat of my truck, heavy as guilt. I killed the engine, and the silence rushed in, broken only by the hiss of ice on metal, and another sound, a rhythmic metallic bite that set my teeth on edge. I looked up, and my stomach flipped. A stranger in a Carhartt jacket was drilling into my front door lock, while my brother-in-law Derek held a golf umbrella over him like they were changing a tire instead of my life. Derek saw me, and his mouth curled into that salesman's smirk he used on country club widows. "Jasmine," he called as if we were meeting for brunch, "you're earlier than we expected." I stepped out, and the sleet soaked my hair, instantly plastering it to my skull. "Derek, what is this? Who is that man?" The drilling stopped. The locksmith shifted his weight, looking anywhere but at me. The door swung open from inside, and there stood Malcolm Hayes, senior patriarch, retired colonel, and professional thundercloud. He filled the frame in his charcoal suit, the one he wore to board meetings and funerals. Beside him, my mother-in-law Evelyn clutched her fox stole-like armor, her lips painted the same red she wore the day she told me I wasn't good enough for her son. "The locksmith is here on our instruction," Malcolm announced, his voice built for parade grounds. I gripped my keys until the teeth bit blood from my palm. "This is my house, Caleb, and Caleb is gone." Malcolm cut me off with a single step forward, forcing me to crane my neck. "The house, the accounts, everything reverts to bloodlines now. It's a Hayes matter, not a whatever your maiden name was matter." Evelyn nodded, her grief a perfect mask. "It's only proper, darling. We must safeguard Caleb's legacy. Safeguard his legacy by locking me out the day after we buried him." Derek finally spoke, sliding closer, his voice smooth as bourbon. "We're simply securing the asset, Jasmine. With Caleb deceased, his equity enters probate, and as executor," Malcolm gestured grandly, "we cannot risk complications." "Complications?" I echoed, the word tasting rust. "You mean me?" Malcolm invaded my space until I smelled his cedar aftershave mixed with sleet. "Let me be plain so even you understand. Blood only. Your time is concluded." That was the line in the frost. "My things," I managed, my voice trembling but not from cold. "Where are my things?" "We've been thorough," Evelyn said, glancing toward the curb where 3 soggy boxes sagged under the weight of my life. My laptop bag teetered on top zipper, yawning open. "You put my things in the yard. We couldn't leave them inside, dear," Evelyn explained like she was teaching table manners. "We must inventory the estate at once." Then my sister-in-law Lauren appeared in the doorway wearing my anniversary cashmere sweater, the one Caleb brought back from Kandahar. She dragged the final box. "Oh, you're here," she said, fake shock dripping like honey. She looked me over, soaked dress boots caked in cemetery mud. "Rough day, huh?" She hauled the box to the porch edge and appended it. My journals, my perfume, our wedding album splashed into the slush. The album landed face down, Caleb's grin swallowed by muddy ice. "Lauren." The name tore out of me raw. What she snapped, dropping the empty box. "It's junk. Derek says none of it's legally yours anyway. Marriage ends at death." "You're not family, you're the footnote." Derek rested a proprietary hand on Lauren's shoulder, the picture of supportive white husband grafted onto old money. She's correct, Jasmine. Probate is crystal. As a childless widow, your claim is academic at best. We're streamlining paperwork. Academic, I whispered, staring at the ruined album, the new brass lock gleaming on the porch rail. They all watched Malcolm, Evelyn, Lauren, Derek, the four horsemen of my apocalypse. They waited for the breakdown, the kneeling and the slush, the pleading for crumbs. They saw a 34-year-old black woman alone, soaked, and in their minds destitute. Malcolm sighed like a disappointed general. Go to a friend, Jasmine. We'll ring if we locate anything strictly personal. I stood rooted. The sleet felt arctic, but my blood boiled. I raised my chin and met the patriarch's stare. You forgot one thing. Malcolm's brow creased. Forgot what? The truck. The truck is titled solely in my name. No, I said, pulling my phone from my coat, the screen's glow harsh against the gray. You forgot I dial 911. Derek's smirk flickered. You're calling the police on family. No, I said, thumb poised over the button. You just clarified your trespassers on my property. Malcolm's face purpled. You wouldn't dare. Do it, Lauren taunted, arms crossed in my sweater. Tell them you're squatting on Hayes' land. See who they cuff. Derek raised a cautioning palm. Let's de-escalate, Jasmine. You're distraught, you're not thinking. I know exactly what I'm thinking. I pressed call. Yes, officer, I'm reporting a break-in at 182 Mossy Creek Lane. 4 individuals, one engaging a locksmith to bar me from my residence. Evelyn gasped, clutching her stole. She actually called the law on blood. Red and blue lights sliced the sleet within minutes. 2 cruisers parked behind my truck. The in-laws stiffened. The locksmith melted backward, clutching his drill like a shield. 2 deputies emerged. Deputy Harris, older, white paunch, straining his belt. Deputy Brooks, younger, black eyes sharp behind rain-specked glasses. Harris approached, hand hovering near his holster. Evening, folks, got a disturbance call, possible BND. Before I spoke, Malcolm activated full colonel charm. Officers, grateful you're here, total misunderstanding. Derek slid in seamless. Deputy, I'm Derek Hayes, family counsel, motion to Malcolm. This is Colonel Malcolm Hayes, retired. His son, Captain Caleb Hayes, was interred yesterday. Harris softened. Condolences, sir. But she nodded toward me, triggered the 911. She did, Derek said, syrupy. This is Jasmine, the captain's widow. Grief has unmoored her. We arrived to secure the estate. I stepped forward, rain streaming off my lashes. Deputy, my name is Jasmine Hayes. This is my home. These individuals are my in-laws. They've dumped my possessions in the yard and hired that man to change my locks the day after my husband's funeral. Deputy Brooks studied the sodden boxes, the wedding album face down in filth, then lifted his gaze to Derek and Malcolm. Sir, is she accurate? Are you attempting to bar this woman from her residence? It's not her residence, officer, Malcolm thundered. It's Hayes' family property. My son is deceased. I'm executor. She has no standing. Derek nodded, producing a leather folio. Probate issue, officers, purely civil. We're preventing asset dissipation. Harris looked weary. Sir, proof of ownership. Gladly, Derek said, extracting a plastic-sleeved document shielded by umbrella. Preliminary estate filing and original deed. See Colonel Malcolm Hayes, primary signatory. Caleb added later as co-borrower, not co-owner. Upon death, title reverts standard. Harris studied the page, flashlight beam cutting sleet. My pulse hammered. Caleb and I signed a mountain of paper at closing. Could this be real? Looks legitimate, Harris said, returning the sheet to Derek, tone shifting, impatient. Ma'am, this deed lists Colonel Hayes primary. You may be the trespasser. Impossible, I cried. Caleb and I purchased with a VA loan. You resided here, Jasmine. Malcolm interrupted, because my son was charitable. Now I'm charitable, letting you exit without charges. Harris stepped between me and the porch. Ma'am, civil matter, but this document is persuasive. I can't permit harassment of grieving family. Collect your belongings, find alternate lodging tonight. Courts open Monday. Alternate lodging. I looked at their faces, Lauren smirking, Evelyn relieved, Derek assessing, Malcolm victorious. My mind raced. Forged deed. Possible. I recalled Caleb 6 months ago, kitchen light low, poring over investment papers Derek wanted signed. He'd laughed, but it was razor sharp. Jazz never trust Derek with ink. Man faked his entire resume to bag Lauren. He'd forge his own death certificate for a better parking spot. Fake receipt. I blinked sleet from my lashes. The paper Derek waved was theater, but theater with weight. Harris was their wall, but Brooks still observed, silent, cataloging the mudded album, Lauren's glee, Derek's briefcase. I turned to Brooks. Deputy Brooks, this is fraud. Derek stiffened. Harris started, "Ma'am," I said. I ignored him, eyes locked on Brooks. "That man Derek Hayes, family advisor, before you accept his document, run his name DEREKHAYES, Georgia warrants investment fraud forgery." Color bled from Derek's face. "Slander," Derek snapped, voice cracking. "Irrelevant, I don't think so." I held up my phone, screen blazing. "This, however, is truth." Closing attorney email archive. Open Hayes' final PDF. Brooks took the phone. Harris peered over. Page 1, VA loan, both names. Page 4, title application, joint tenancy, right of survivorship. Brooks scrolled, face grim. Return the phone. Harris exhaled, frustrated. Conflicting docs. Ownership unclear. To locksmith, pack it up, no lock change tonight. To Malcolm and Derek, you cannot eject this woman pending civil resolution, vacate the premises. Evelyn shrieked, "This is my baby's home." Harris to me, "Ma'am, we can't arrest them either, civil dispute, retain counsel." Locksmith fled. Malcolm vibrated rage. "Fine," he spat. "You won this round, Jasmine, but the will reading is tomorrow. When that document speaks, I own this house and you leave with nothing." The house was too quiet for 3 days straight, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I slept in Caleb's old PT shirts and kept every light burning because darkness felt like surrender. I changed every lock myself with a cordless drill and a heart that refused to skip a beat. On the kitchen counter sat the only thing I touched. The black USB drive Caleb pressed into my palm 4 months ago, the night he came home from Fort Benning with shadows under his eyes that no amount of sleep could erase. Jazzy had whispered, sliding it across the scarred oak table, "This is everything. Hayes Global Books, contracts, fuel, invoices, loans. Dad's been cooking them for years. If anything ever happens to me, keep this safe. You're the only person I trust to see the pattern." I had kissed him, then tasted the fear on his tongue, and promised I would guard it with my life. Now I guarded it with everything that was left of me. Tuesday morning, my phone lit up with an email that turned my blood to ice. Subject: final notice, acceleration clause invoked. Sender: Southern Heritage Bank. Balance due in full, $312,000. Deadline: 48 hours. Failure to pay results in immediate foreclosure. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. We had never missed a payment. Never. I called the bank hands, shaking so hard I dropped the phone twice. "Southern Heritage, this is Brenda." "Brenda, I'm Jasmine Hayes, account 8291 Mossy Creek. There's been a mistake." Typing, a pause. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm so sorry for your loss. We were notified of Captain Hayes passing. The loan was primarily secured against his military income. Without that income stream, underwriters reassessed the co-borrower's capacity." "I have capacity. I have a business." "Yes, ma'am. We received updated financials for JH Global Logistics, submitted by the estate's advisor, Mr. Derek Hayes. According to those documents, your company has posted negative net income for 3 consecutive quarters and is effectively insolvent. Acceleration is standard." "Derek." "Of course." I hung up and the room spun. They had manufactured my ruin on paper, then used it to trigger foreclosure, so I would crawl to them begging. My phone rang again. "Evelyn." I let it ring twice, then hit speaker, because I wanted to hear the trap spring in real time. "Jasmine, darling," Evelyn's voice dripped molasses. "We just heard the most dreadful news. Poor child, you're about to lose the house." I said nothing. "Malcolm is heartbroken," she continued, "but he has such a generous spirit. He can make this disappear with one call to the bank president. They golf together every Thursday. All he asks is a tiny gesture of good faith." I knew what was coming. "A quitclaim deed. Sign the house over to the estate and Malcolm will save it for you. You can stay a few months till you're back on your feet. Isn't that merciful?" Merciful. The same word Caleb used when he handed me the drive. Mercy is what you give someone who still has a pulse, Jazz. I remembered his voice clear as chapel bells. I waited until Evelyn's syrup ran out. "Tell Malcolm his mercy is declined." Silence. Then a shriek, "You'll be homeless, Jasmine." I ended the call. I opened my real banking app, the one Derek never knew existed, Because Caleb had set it up offshore for payroll on classified contracts. Balance, $1.4 million liquid. I logged into Southern Heritage, paid the full $312,000 in one click. Confirmation flashed green. Loan satisfied in full. Title free and clear. Deed to be mailed within 10 business days. I closed the laptop and looked at the framed photo I had rescued from the slush. Caleb in dress, Blue's arm around me, both of us laughing on the Tybee Island pier the day he proposed. They thought they broke me, baby, I whispered. They have no idea the war just started. Another email pinged. Sender, Lawson and Gray, attorneys at law. Subject, reading of last will and testament of Captain Caleb M. Hayes. Tomorrow 10:00 a.m. sharp. Attendance mandatory. I smiled for the first time in 72 hours. Let them come. The law office smelled like lemon oil and old money. Dark paneling portraits of white men who never had to fight for anything. I wore the same black suit I buried my husband in because grief is the sharpest armor I own. They were already seated at the mahogany table like crows on a wire. Malcolm at the head, ramrod straight in his colonel's posture. Evelyn clutching pearls that probably cost more than most people's cars. Lauren scrolling her phone in my cashmere sweater. Derek polishing his glasses with a silk pocket square. They didn't speak to me. They didn't need to. Their eyes said everything. You're about to be erased. The attorney, Mr. Lawson, entered, tall, thin voice like dry leaves. He placed a single blue folder in the center of the table. Good morning. We are here for the reading of Captain Caleb Michael Hayes' last will and testament. I was his personal counsel. This will be brief. He opened the folder. I, Caleb Michael Hayes, being of sound mind. He skipped the legalese and cut to the meat. First, I appoint, as executor of my estate, my father, Colonel Malcolm Hayes. Malcolm allowed himself the smallest nod. Derek tapped his pen like a metronome, counting down my execution. To my sister, Lauren, I bequeath my vinyl collection in hopes she finally learns taste. Lauren rolled her eyes. To my mother, Evelyn, my childhood photo albums that she may remember I was once small. Evelyn dabbed dry eyes with lace. And to the residue of my estate. This was it. Lawson's voice never wavered. All remaining assets, real, personal, or mixed, I devise, and bequeath absolutely to my father, Colonel Malcolm Hayes. The air left the room in a collective exhale of triumph. Evelyn actually sighed, like she'd been holding her breath for years. Lauren grabbed Derek's arm nails, digging half-moons into his sleeve. Malcolm closed his eyes in benediction, then opened them on me, pure victorious fire. Derek's smile was a shark finally tasting blood. It is a heavy mantle, Lawson continued, but one the colonel will bear with honor. Malcolm leaned back, satisfied. Well, he announced to the room, that appears conclusive. Mr. Derek will coordinate immediate asset transfer, beginning with the residence. Derek clicked his pen. Paperwork by noon, Colonel. House first, then accounts. Lauren let out a delighted laugh. Guess you'll need that bus ticket now, Jasmine. I didn't move. I simply watched the blue folder. There was a second thinner packet Lawson had not yet touched. Malcolm turned to the attorney. I believe we're finished here. Lawson looked at him over wire-rimmed glasses. Colonel, with respect, I am not. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Malcolm's jaw flexed. You read the will. I am sole beneficiary. You are beneficiary of the probate estate, Lawson corrected. However, Captain Hayes held substantial non-probate assets governed by separate contracts that supersede this document. Derek leaned forward, suddenly alert. Non-probate, like a 401k, minor. Not always. Lawson pulled the second packet. First and largest, service members, group life insurance, SGLI. Maximum coverage $500,000 payable immediately upon line-of-duty death. Evelyn gasped. $500,000, Lauren whispered, eyes glittering. Malcolm sat straighter. As executor, that sum flows to the estate. Incorrect, Lawson said almost gently. SGLI is federal. Beneficiary designation controls. The will is irrelevant. He slid a single sheet across the table. Certified copy, filed with due D 4 months ago. Sole primary beneficiary 100%. Mrs. Jasmine Hayes. The room detonated. No, Evelyn shrieked. That's impossible, Lauren screamed. She forced him. Derek went corpse pale. Will contest. Malcolm pointed one trembling finger at me. You turned my son against his own blood. That money is ours. I placed my hand on the paper. Mine. Derek recovered, first voice shrill. Fine insurance is one thing, but the will explicitly transfers all real property. The house is ours. We have the deed. Lawson looked at him with something close to pity. Mr. Hayes, please stop attempting to practice law. You are again catastrophically mistaken. He produced the final document. This is the warranty deed recorded Fulton County 3 days after Captain and Mrs. Hayes married. Title held as joint tenants with right of survivorship. Malcolm blinked. Translation, Lawson said. At the instant of Captain Hayes' death, his 50% transferred automatically to the surviving tenant. The house belongs 100% to Jasmine Hayes. Your will Colonel inherited exactly 2 things, some old records and photo albums. The estate is empty. Lauren lunged across the table, clawing for the papers. You lying bitchile. Derek yanked her back. Malcolm rose slowly purple, with a rage older than the country he claimed to love. He stared at me like he could will me out of existence. You think this is victory, he hissed. Enjoy your stolen money. Enjoy your stolen house. He leaned in close enough. I smelled his hatred. But JH Global Logistics, that little sandbox you play in. I built freight in this state. I own every broker, every dock, every driver. I will burn your company to the ground. I will bleed you until that $500,000 is dust. This war just started. 2 weeks later, my phone became a funeral march of cancellation emails. 70% of my contracts gone overnight. Malcolm was undercutting me by 35% on every lane guaranteed losses, just to watch me drown. I watched the red bleed across my whiteboard and felt the old familiar calm settle in my bones, the same calm I felt the first time Caleb handed me a rifle and said breathe out on the trigger squeeze. I was exactly where he knew I would be when the shooting started. Friday 4:17 p.m. the office door chimed. Lauren and Derek walked in like they still owned the world. Lauren wore a new mink coat and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Derek carried the same leather briefcase, now scuffed at the corners. They didn't knock. Look at this sad little hole, Lauren sneered. Is this what Caleb died for? Derek tapped the whiteboard. Terminal hemorrhage, Jasmine. Father-in-law is making quite the statement. Get out, I said, voice winter calm. You're trespassing. Mercy, Derek answered, opening the briefcase. We're here with an offer. He slid a single sheet across my desk. Purchase agreement. Malcolm will buy JH Global lock, stock, and barrel for $15,000 cash. Lauren leaned in. Take it, Jasmine. Take the 15 grand and disappear. It's more than this dump is worth. Derek smiled, reasonable. White flag time. You can't win in Daddy's sandbox. Lauren tapped the signature line with my own pen. Sign it. Be in Alabama by midnight. Best deal you'll ever get. I looked at the paper. I looked at their smug, triumphant faces. And I laughed. Not a sob, not defeat. A low, dangerous sound that made the air itself back away. Lauren's smirk faltered. What's so funny? Everything I said. I stood slow. You still think Malcolm is strong. You think 35% discounts are power. Derek's smile froze. He's not attacking me, I continued. He's committing suicide in slow motion. I walked to the whiteboard, picked up a red marker, wrote 2 words across their pathetic offer. Federal contracts. Derek went the color of old ash. JH Global, I said, doesn't stand for Jasmine Hayes. It stands for Joint Base Honor Global. Veteran-owned small business, fully certified, set-aside eligible. I turned my monitor. While your father was hemorrhaging millions to steal my $5,000 lanes, I was finalizing this. Department of Defense letterhead. 5-year exclusive contract. All non-combat ground transport, Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield. $14.2 million. Lauren's mouth opened soundlessly. Derek made a sound like a dying animal. 14. That's right, I said soft, and this morning it went public record. I watched understanding crash over them like cold water. Your father's bank saw a new VOSB with $14 million in federal backing suddenly dominate Georgia lanes. Then they saw Malcolm Hayes taking on catastrophic losses to fight a war he couldn't win. I leaned in close enough, they smelled the smoke on my breath. At 11:03 this morning, Southern Heritage called every note he ever signed. He had until 2:00 p.m. to cover $28 million in commercial debt. He couldn't. Default recorded 2:01 p.m. Entire portfolio, auction this afternoon. Guess who bought it? Derek slid down the wall like his spine had been removed. Lauren started shaking. You, I whispered, own nothing now. I own every truck, every warehouse, every penny he ever borrowed, including the mortgage on the house you grew up in. I own you. I pressed speaker on my phone, dialed the number I had waited weeks to call. It rang once. Jasmine Malcolm's voice cracked like old leather, pure panic. Did she sign? Tell me she signed. Hello, Malcolm, I said, sweet as Sunday. Offer rejected. You. But I have a counteroffer. I just received confirmation. JH Global now holds all your defaulted debt. Every cent. I'm calling the loans. I'm foreclosing. I'm taking everything. I hung up. Looked at the 2 broken people on my floor. Get out of my building, I said. And tell your father the war is over. He lost.